talking about Reese Witherspoon, you're probably envisioning Elle from Legally Blonde, which is a phenomenal movie, one of my favorites. I can quote that thing backwards and forwards. She's also played Cheryl Strayed in Wild, a movie adaptation of a very popular memoir that I think came out in like 2018, 2019 about the Pacific Crest Trail. It was a great book, great movie. As an actress, as a producer, and even as a tastemaker, she's definitely made a name for herself. And I didn't know what a tastemaker was, being a regular, average person who doesn't have celebrity status. I didn't know what that meant. And from a quick Google search, I found out that basically she's able to detect what's going to be trendy and what isn't. She's able to put something out into the world, deem it trendy, and then it will be trendy. Which for me is just like magic. This is all to say that she has an enormous amount of social influence. Today in this video, we're specifically going to be diving into her book club. She officially launched her book club back in 2017 in conjunction with her media company, Hello Sunshine, which also produced Wild, the movie adaptation of the book by Cheryl Strayed. She sort of was unofficially promoting books on her channel, on her Instagram profile back in 2015, but the whole thing really started to get set in motion and become a brand in 2017. In fact, what's really cool about her media company, Hello Sunshine, is that she funded the entire thing herself. And I have a quote from an interview. I've got my laptop, so I'm going to be looking at my notes, but she is quoted in an interview saying, "I funded the whole company myself purposefully because I didn't want to be under anyone else's mandate. I just started reading and reading and reading." So her book club, Hello Sunshine, the whole shebang, is valued to be worth about $900 million. That's so much money. Oh my God. If she picks you up, you're going places. Historically, any book that she's picked has skyrocketed to the top of the bestseller list. This isn't to say that every single book she's touched has become a bestseller, but it definitely has had a lot of influence on, again, what becomes trendy and what doesn't, being a tastemaker. Dialing it back a little bit, we have to understand what the book club is about, what it represents, what she's wanting to represent in the media. So Reese's book club has highlighted about 100, maybe a little bit less than 100 books within the 5 years that it has officially been active. Titles that have done very well for themselves include Little Fires Everywhere, The Last Guest House, and of course, Where the Crawdads Sing, which came out in 2018, which what's impressive about that is that it remained at the top of the New York Times bestseller list for 1 year, which is just incredible. Now, when it comes to key points that Reese's book club is looking for when picking up these books, she's going to be looking at whether or not it's female-led, whether or not it offers hope, it needs to be very well written, it must be broadly appreciated and strike a balance between literary and commercial, meaning that it needs to be a book club book. And I didn't even know that that was a category. But what a book club book is a book that primarily caters to people who are both educated and busy. The goal is to have a very interesting book for a lot of people to read, and have it not feel like quite so much work. What's admirable about Reese's book club is that she makes it a point to represent women of color and other diverse voices. In fact, she and her team recently created a writing fellowship called Lit Up in order to support these underrepresented authors. Some titles written by non-white authors that she's represented include Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows, LA Weather, and You Should See Me in a Crown. This is all to say that Reese's book club is very concerned with representing the female experience, albeit it might have a little more pizzazz in a category like murder mystery, but you get the point. So how does it work? Every month, Reese recommends one book for her community, which she posts in a video on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But from what I understand, Instagram seems to be the primary platform because, again, that's where she was sort of promoting these books unofficially before the launch of her book club. But people usually find out about these recommendations through the various platforms, their website, and now they even have an app. And the app includes a club card, a calendar of events, and a couple different programs, offers. They even have, I think, like a discussion panel. So these different programs and products that they offer, there's a few different ones, and the three that I'm about to talk about now, I pulled directly from her website. One of those is The Readership, which is a pay-it-forward platform that leverages the collective to promote reading, diverse voices, and other literacy efforts. And every dollar made from affiliate links, from book club products, anything of the sort, every dollar from that goes towards organizing library drops, supporting writing programs, and installing book nooks and underserved communities, which is pretty cool. They also have a gift of reading box, which just seems kind of like a gift box that you can send someone in the mail. And they also offer a Lit Up application and mentorship. So the application is dedicated to unpublished and underrepresented writers to be included in Reese's Lit Up Book Club program. Regarding the mentorship, that includes a 5-day retreat beginning the first quarter of next year in 2023 to support diverse writers by pairing them with an active and qualified author. That is just too cool. Now, for a fast answer of how do they pick the book, this is a direct quote from their website. There's not a formula to the books we spotlight in our club. This is all to say that Reese's Book Club really likes to highlight stories written by driven people. Now, when we're talking about the books specifically, we want to know about how they're chosen, what some of the trends are around these books, what that all sort of looks like. So there's going to be a lot more statistics in this next section. So to answer the question of, does Reese actually pick the books? The answer is yes, because the CEO of Hello Sunshine, Sarah Hardin, has confirmed herself that Reese actually chooses the books. And if she doesn't choose them, then she can have a staff member recommend a book to her, which she will then read and then confirm whether or not that's a book that they would want to represent in their book club. In fact, to support Reese with these decisions, I didn't even know this was a job. They have a professional bookworm on hand. Had I known that was an option, I would have completely bypassed the whole graduate school thing, bought myself a one-way ticket to California, and knocked on her door myself. To give you some context, the average book will sell between 250 and 500 copies in its lifetime. In 2019, on average, any book Reese picked would sell around 18,500 copies, which is, I'm going to do some quick math. Hold on a second. You'd have to sell 250 books 74 times to sell that many. That's just crazy. I have to do math like that, just to like put it in perspective, or else it doesn't completely register. So for example, Delia Owens, who is the author of Where the Crawdads Sing, she was expected to have a print run of 28,000 copies, which on its own is just incredible. But when Reese spotlighted it, it sold 8 million copies worldwide. I don't even know how many that is. Going a little bit deeper, whenever Reese picks a book, there's a very high chance that she is going to pick a book that hasn't even made its way out of the publishing process yet. In fact, 70% of the titles are chosen before they've even been completed. So this assumes that she's keeping up with these trends real time. She's keeping her eye on the ball, either she or her team is. I imagine it's probably a combo, or maybe a little bit more on her team. But they're staying up to date with what's coming and what's going, which is pretty impressive. What's also important to note is that a lot of these book deals that they're looking at are from authors who've gotten 6-figure deals, the 6-figure advance, which assumes that there's a preempt. So I'm not entirely certain of what a preempt is, but from what I've gathered, it's kind of like a negotiation. So a publisher will come to an author and their agent and be like, hey, I really want that book. I'm going to pay you a lot of money for it. And you have 24 hours to tell me whether or not you want to go through with that. And as far as I know, the purpose of that is to eliminate the competition for other publishers that are wanting to get their hands on that book. So this is all to say that the books that she's picking are expected to do very, very well, and are also written by writers that aren't quite so on the map. In fact, 41% of the chosen authors had debut novels represented by Reese's Book Club, which is to say, in a debut novel is an author's first book, which is kind of refreshing, because as someone myself who is a first time trying to be author, it's really hard, but it's refreshing to know that she has a pretty wide open door for authors with new books. The only catch is it has to be very well written, which on its own can be a large financial and time investment. So when it comes to genres, she represents a pretty large variety. I've got a graph that I'm going to stick up here for you to look at. Going from largest to smallest, she primarily holds thriller mystery novels. Second to that is domestic, which I wasn't sure what that is, but basically think Pride and Prejudice. It represents young middle-class women in the mid-19th century, so think like Jane Austen and all that stuff. Third is romance, then historical, then memoir, literary, self-help, western, and true crime being the least represented genre. So that's pretty straightforward, but I thought it was interesting anyway, so I thought I'd throw it in. So if we take a step back, we can assume that Reese and her team are very concerned with high quality books, which I don't blame her one bit. I mean, if you've read some of those books on the New York Times bestseller list, some of them just aren't that good, and there's actually a reason for that. If you click up here, I covered a video and a blog on how a book makes it on the New York Times bestseller list, so that's got a lot of tea on that. Earlier I mentioned that your book has to be very well written. That's a large part of it, but it's not the only thing. She and her team are going to be looking at other factors like how many books you sold in the past, if you're a more seasoned author, what your background is like with writing. If you're a subject matter expert on what you're writing, that might depend on the genre. And of course, if you have a diverse voice, if you're someone who's, Asian American, African American, Pacific Islander, you name it. Some have argued that her book club isn't a real book club because there's not too much interaction between Reese and her audience, or an author and Reese's audience, or whatever. I've been out of the game for a little while. I followed Reese's book club a few years ago, and then I kind of took a step back, and now I'm kind of starting to get more involved in it. But with the app, they have a whole discussion panel, so it seems like they're kind of starting to take the right steps in that direction to be a little more communicative for people to talk with each other. From what I remember, there were like a lot of prompts and stuff and questions, Q&As that you could have, but you'd have to like submit it in advance. So it seems like they're taking the right steps in that direction to be a little more interactive with their audience, and for audience members to interact with each other too. So at the end of the day, I really can only say good things about Reese's book club. I was low-key kind of hoping I'd find some tea, like, oh hey, pay $1,000. That's probably not enough. Pay $100,000 and you'll get your book represented, but I did not find anything of the sort. However, since this topic is based on a blog that I wrote, I feel compelled to give a shout out to two extremely helpful articles that I found. One was by Vox. The writer for that was Constance Grady, and the other was a woman's personal website, and I'm going to be linking all this in the description box. I hope I pronounced her name right, but it's Kazia Manales. I hope I say that right. She put together an entire spreadsheet on her own to detect what these trends were. So she's absolutely phenomenal for doing that. So I'm going to link all that stuff in the description box for you to look at. But otherwise, that is all I have for today. I just want to make sure I'm giving credit where credit is due. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. I also have a website where there's very similar content in my blog page, so you can go to laurenericksonwrites.com to find all that. I also have a weekly newsletter that also has very similar content to what you see on this page. Thank you for taking a chance on someone with minimal subscribers, and I will see you next time.